Hello, good evening, nutraMetrix. Can you please type in the chat if you can see and hear me tonight? Hey guys, can you type in the chat? Okay, great. I was wondering if my sound wasn't coming through. Okay, excellent. So we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. Tonight, what we're going to be talking about is answering the all famous objection of I can't sell. This is one that you're going to hear when you do a proposal rather frequently. In my experience, it's been over 60% of the time that I have this objection. So I kind of want to tell you a little bit about the history of how this objection came about. So that's what we'll talk about today. And it's supposed to be a short meet on unless you have questions. If you've had personal experiences, we can go ahead and answer those and elaborate on those. So I'm coming to you tonight from Mexico City. I'm still here. I don't fly back home until Thursday. So at that point, I've been here for 2 full weeks. And yes, it's been a long time here, but I'm having a ton of fun. So that's very nice. And I'm finding that things are not so different in Mexico, although, of course, some adjustments are needed for the culture. But anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. And I want to tell you a little bit about the history of how this whole I can't sell objection came about. And I know all of you go to your nutraMetrix trainings. I can't stress it enough. I know I said it before in another meet on that I did, where if you're really building this professionally, you should be going every single year. New Jersey just sold out. If you're available, definitely head out to St. Petersburg, Florida. I will be in Florida. So I'll be out there with anybody who's going to be going. I'm so excited to, see you guys out there. So definitely go there. And the reason I say go to the nutrametrics training is for the obvious reasons. Of course, you want to definitely gain as much knowledge and experience. And you guys all know my story already, where what I just am a really good student. I mean, you tell me to do something and I do it, and I do it pretty verbatim. It's funny because sometimes I don't even use common sense. So if you tell me to do something, maybe it doesn't make sense to me, I'll still do it when I'm trying to really, follow a system or follow direction. So that could be good or bad. But anyway, the reason I say this is because uh, I developed this answer to I can't sell. How do you talk to a doctor who says to you, I can't sell? Really from listening to Dr. Deidre Mason. So the beginning part, the morning part of nutrametrics on day one, when you show up, Dr. Deidre Mason does her skit, and I absolutely love it. I love when she says, as you know, doctor. And it's funny because I say it all the time. And I find myself here in Mexico when I'm talking to Mexican doctors, I say it in Spanish, as you know, doctor, and really, she does this is a conversation when she talks about the nutrition and she talks about the deficiencies in our food. In the morning of the nutrametrics training, day one, she also talks about how our system for a health professional is not a conflict of interest, it's a confluence of interest. And if you haven't really paid attention to that, you need to get to a nutrimetrics training. You need to hear how she does that, because that's really where I started. And I started kind of listening to her and I'm like, huh, confluence of interest. How is that? And then of course, as I started going out to the field, I started finding where it really made sense to kind of bridge those connections that Dr. Deidre Mason talked about with the confluence of interest and how she explains it. It's great in theory and it's perfect. It makes sense. But I kept kind of scratching my head going, how do I transfer this into a proposal? And then it just kind of happened casually. And it's so funny because I do it all the time now. And now, as with you guys, I'm going to teach it to you. And I never get a rebuttal. I mean, that's the one objection. I think other objections I get rebuttals on, and I'm like, not really sure of, but that's one objection that I've really locked down that I don't get anymore. So I want to kind of talk about that tonight. So we've already talked about the discovery meeting, and so you've seen the discovery meeting form, and you have it, with you. And one of the questions on the discovery meeting form, of course, There's two questions there that we've talked a lot about. It's do you provide natural alternatives for your patients? Do they ask you for that? And of course, the ever famous, do you ask, do your patients ask you to recommend a multivitamin and an omega? Do you know that question is not only important for this objection, but it's also even important when you implement. If the doctor's not sure and they want a really small implementation, you've heard multiple meet-ons, you've heard in training where the response to when a patient asks you for a multivitamin is just, hey, it's this one, use this one. It's really very simple. So that's really a key question for me in my discovery meetings. So when the doctor says to me, I've asked this question, numerous times, and for the most part, I'd say over 70 to 80% of my forms, probably leaning to the 85 to 90% of the time, the health professional will say, yes, they do. I've actually, when I get information and the health professional says, no, I do not, now I'm starting to ask why. And that's an underlying question I'm trying to understand. Is it because the doctor feels like, is it a belief that supplementation is not recommended because they get everything through their food? And as you know, this is the whole Dr. Deidre Mason segment. That is a false statement. It's also in our staff 123 that we don't get everything that we need from food. But I'm trying to understand the doctor's position at this point. So if he says to me, um, no, I don't, my patients don't ask me that question. I also wonder, and I ask why. Sometimes it's maybe they're so specialized. I met with a dentist here this week in Mexico City who answered no to that question because they see him as so specialized as, dental that they don't think to ask the question. I met with another sports medicine doctor today who answered no. And so, kind of when they answer no, like the game's not over at that point. You're just trying to explore. And so, for the doctors that say no, I think at that point you continue to explore the discovery meeting and go back and watch my psychology of a discovery meeting or watch Sarah's discovery meeting. You got to see it 7 different times from 7 different people to kind of get the one that really works for you and then make a decision as you move forward. I've told you before, I've walked away from potential, accounts at the discovery meeting, and I will continue to do that. I did that this week in Mexico. I walked away from somebody as well. So, anyway, when they say yes, that's what we want to talk about. That's going to be most of the time. So it's going to be like 85% of the time they're going to say yes. As you already know, the percent is the next question is, what percent, doctor? 20, 30, 40, 50. Again, it doesn't matter what the percent is as long as it's over 10. And it's never, in my opinion, been less than, in my experience, been less than 10. So you'll ask what percent, doctor, and you write that down. You know that. And then what happens is the next question I say is, what do you do? How do you answer a patient when they ask you, what multivitamin should I take? And that answer is very, very important. I talked about it in the psychology meeting that we had, the meet on, because you're going to write it down. You're going to say, I send them to the GNC or I refer them to another doctor. You want to explore what they're really sending their patients to take. And the reason you want to explore this is because what's going to happen is going to help you understand, what's the quality. Do they say, I just tell them to go to the Costco and pick up anything that's on sale? That tells you right there that the doctor may or may not understand the quality of supplements, so that you may have to do a little bit of education when you get to the proposal. They may say, I got a partnership with another doctor and he's got an elite line and blah, blah, blah. And then he goes into that. And then maybe now you understand that the doctor not only believes in supplements, but he also understands something about the quality. So then you'd explore things a little bit more. What happens is if you're doing a discovery meeting, the way we've talked about doing a discovery meeting, you're not really talking about the company and you're not talking about product and you're not elaborating. You're biting your tongue and you're being quiet and you're writing everything down. So you're not going to get an objection of, I can't sell, because you're not going to have anything that they can object to. You're just asking questions and writing down answers. So when you're going to get that objection is always going to be at the proposal. If you guys are getting that objection early, you need to reevaluate what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're proceeding, because that just means that you're doing something that leads them to believe that it's just about products. Okay. So now we're at the fast forward. We are at the proposal. So at the proposal, as you know, I like to talk about the quality. I like to talk about our growth. I like to have that chart, and I know that I'm going to redo that proposal meet on because it didn't quite record for you guys. We'll talk about that, but I like to kind of go through all those things. And then I like to talk about, when I talk about quality, I talk about our differentiators, one being isotonic. And then at that point, when I'm talking about isotonic, I'm pulling out the product, I'm mixing it for the doctor in the cup, and then he's drinking it. Okay. So usually the objection to I can't sell won't come in until the very end when you're done presenting everything. It doesn't really matter when it comes in. Okay. If it comes in when you're having him taste it, or if it comes in at the end, it doesn't matter. You can still answer it. So here's a slide that I use, and it's in the information. And this is a Spanish one just because I happen to have it handy. But this is the all famous Centrum slide with all the highlighted negative ingredients. So when I'm going through the proposal, that is definitely a slide that I'm going to have in there, especially if the doctor says, yes, they recommend a multi, they send their patients to the Costco, pick up whatever's on sale. You know I'm not missing that slide. When I talk to that slide, I will never, ever, ever be like, oh, doctor, in the discovery meeting, you told me you send them to the Costco. I mean, that stuff, that's what's in here. I'm never going to put myself in a place where the doctor is going to look at me as being like confrontational or being like, I'm, talking to him, talking down to him. Never, ever, ever. You always want to keep the good relationship. But what I'll say is, I'll say, oh, when we met, doctor, you told me that 70% of your patients are asking you, to recommend a multivitamin. Well, if you don't do it, doctor, then, as you know, they're going to go to the drugstore. They're going to go to the Costco. Even though he told me he sends them to the Costco, I'm not going to say, you send them to the Costco. I'm going to say, they're going to go to the Costco and they're going to pick this up off the shelf. And look at what they're having, their binders, the fillers, the cancer causing dyes, et cetera. And I kind of go through it. And that's very matter of fact. And then I just move to the next slide. And then I just move to discussing the next point. And I, of course, I'll bring the, the product, the science proposal, and I'll go through everything. At the very end, they may say, I say, do you have any questions for me at this time? They'll say, well, you know what? I don't believe in selling, or I don't sell. I can't sell to my patients. Sometimes they'll think it's like an ethical or whatever. So what I do is I always play very dumb, and I'm I tend to be really expressive with my face, and I know a lot of people have told me that you can kind of see how I'm feeling because I don't have a poker face, right? So I use that. Remember, I've talked to you guys always like, know yourself, know your attributes, and use it. So I'll sit there and I'll be like, I don't understand. What are you talking about? Selling? I'm confused, doctor. Can you please explain it to me? And I'll like stop. I won't assume that I know what he means. And then he'll be like, well, I'm going to have these vitamins here and I'm going to have to sell them to my patients. And then I'm like I'm literally confused. Like my face is like this. I'm like, no, okay. So doctor, help me understand how you already have 70% of your patients. So, and I run the numbers. So if he's got 3,000 patients, I kind of run the numbers in my head. I'm like, okay, more than half. If it's like 1,500 patients, more than 1,500 patients are asking you what multivitamin to take. And today, you'd send them to the Costco where they're going to pick this up with the cancer causing dyes and the, hydrogenated oils. I said, before today, doctor, I know that, you didn't understand about the isotonic advantage. But as you know, doctor, and I'll pull up the isotonic. Now I get excited. Doctor, with the isotonic advantage, it's going to be absorbed in me. And then you just go through the bullets. And I'm like, so I understand what you're saying, but I'm confused because the patients are asking you for something as the expert. And now you have a solution that is top quality that you can offer that. So this doctor is not a conflict of interest. And I shake my head. Like, I'm like, it's not a conflict of interest. It's a confluence of interest. And I'm smiling at this point and nodding my head. What winds up happening is they're nodding their head with me. I have done this at least 15 times without exaggeration, and I have not had one doctor kick me out of the office or say something. Sometimes I've even gone as far as to say, Doctor, when you graduated medical school, you took an oath, and I have gone there. And that oath was to do no harm. Before today, doctor, you didn't know that you were doing harm by sending your patients to buy this. But now, doctor, you know there's a better option. And that's really what I say. And again, you're respectful, but you just call a spade a spade. I mean, I'm very black and white. There's very little gray in my life. And I'm just like, I don't understand. And I have not had anybody that then will say, well, I'm taking money because it makes sense. It's logical, and I feel like with if we go back to the golden circle, right? We start with why at the discovery meeting because we're coming kind of with their vision, their mission. And if you remember that Simon Sinek video, which is one of my favorite videos, it talks about the two parts of the brain, the limbic brain and then the neocortex. And the limbic one, I believe, is the one that deals with emotion. It's also the one that doesn't have the ability to comprehend language or details, but it makes the decisions. So when they've already liked me at the discovery meeting, they've invited me back, I fostered that relationship. Now I'm at the proposal presenting facts. So now it makes sense. So in their heart, they know, this could potentially work. Now I have the facts and the product to substantiate that it works. And now it just makes logical sense. So that's pretty much it. That's what I do with I can't sell and how I do that. I'm sorry it's a little loud. I'm in Mexico and I don't have control over my environment. But anyway, now I'm just going to open it up to questions. It's just really short. I think if you set it up correctly from the beginning by really keeping quiet, not selling till you get to the proposal, you'll hit a home run. So go ahead and take questions. No questions? Okay. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions for tonight, okay. Yep. I got somebody asked, do I ever mention that they recommend testing? No. I've never mentioned any kind of testing. I'm not sure what kind of testing you mean, Bob, but if you let me know. I'm not really sure. No, I don't. I have the science, and usually if the objection comes up, for the most part, there's only been one doctor that actually stopped me in the middle and was like, I can't sell this to my patients. But for the most part, all the others will do it at the end where you've already shown them the science, you've had the articles to substantiate whatever it is that you're talking about, and then you're good. Some doctors have said that they feel awkward disclosing that they make commissions on the sales. How do you handle that? I've never, ever, ever had a doctor in my personal experience ask about that. We do have a letter that they could share with their patient base. We have that in our nutraMetrix toolbox so that they can open that up. I've never had a doctor that actually says, I feel uncomfortable earning commissions because I think that the doctors, maybe it's the way I present it or something, but they provide a service to their patient, whether it's a medical service, a diagnostic service, or something. Patients are asking them a question and they're answering the question. They get paid by the insurance companies. In other countries, they get paid directly by the patient. So, I have not had that experience. Questions? Any other? Yeah, okay, Bob. Yeah, with the testing, the science, that's what you can provide. It's interesting because it's a little bit of a different market, but we do have a health professional here in Mexico that's doing their own clinical trials. Now, here things work differently. He used to do clinical trials for the country, and he has decided to start his own clinical trials. He's a bone doctor with our calcium and 100 patients, and he's going to write, I guess, an article for Mexico. I don't know. Not for us, not for corporate, but for himself and for his colleagues because he's well respected. So you can do that kind of testing. I mean, if the doctors, it's really, as you know, the beautiful thing about nutraMetrix is it's very customized. You can really do whatever it is that you want to do. So, okay. All right. So with that, we'll say go ahead and good night and have a great evening. Bye bye. Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Do you show nutraMetrix website to the doctor? If yes, how? I do. I do. So when I began to do my proposals, I went into our nutraMetrix workbook and I pulled out that nutraMetrix agenda. Remember that one, the one page with the key points. And in one of those, it talks about a little bit about like the technology and the how they have the ability of the website and it's seamless. So what I did is I have I print out that one slide. Now I don't print it out for every single doctor. I just kind of, and I'll show you what I have done here for Mexico, for my own Mexico doctors. I have a quick little kind of little binder, and this is what I'll redo with the proposal. And I just go through certain key PowerPoint slides that are in our nutraMetrix. I think I've put them on the Facebook group and files a long, long time ago when somebody asked me that question. I use the vision, mission one, the increase, the quality, the 2 or 3 quality slides, the differentiators, and that's where I throw in the nutraMetrix website because it allows me to talk about if the doctor's going to raise an objection of I'm too busy, which they usually don't do. But if they raise it, I'll say, you know what, doctor, it's seamless. We have a website and we teach your staff how to go ahead, and create patient accounts for your patients. And then as what part of the wellness protocol. And then they could go ahead and order, online so that it's seamless for you. And they really like that. So that's how I talk about it. Any other questions? No. Do I have a password to do demonstrations to show the doctor the website feature? No, I just show it in a slide. So I literally have that one website slide printed out from the nutraMetrix business presentation slide deck that we have. I just literally print that one out. I put it in the binder like I show you. I put it in the little plastic sheets and that's what I use so that I don't have to. I just have one copy that I use forever and it's protected and I don't have to like spend a ton of money printing it out each and every time. No, I don't show them a demo of the website until they become an account, and then I do a step 1, 2, 3, and then it's part of this at the end of the step 1, 2, 3 to do that. Wonderful. Congratulations, Bob. He's got an HP registering tomorrow. Excellent. Okay. Very good. Well, have a great evening. And if you have any other questions, you can post them on the Facebook group. Have a good night.